Eliza woke up every day before the sun rose, when the city was still cloaked in a mantle of silence. The smell of fresh coffee filled the small apartment she shared with her son, Miles, a 10-year-old boy full of energy and dreams. She got up with a mix of exhaustion and determination, knowing that the day's journey would begin in just a few minutes. As she prepared the coffee, Eliza reminisced about the nights when she dreamed of being a singer, when music resonated in her heart like a beacon of hope. But reality was different. The commitments awaiting her as a cleaner were many, and the need to support Miles was her priority. Miles entered the kitchen, his sleepy eyes lighting up at the sight of his mother. "Mom, could you sing for me before I go to school?" he asked with an innocent voice. Eliza smiled, her heart warming at the request. "Of course, my love. How about Imagine by John Lennon?" The song was a refuge for both of them, a way to escape the harsh reality they faced every day. As Eliza sang, Miles's gaze fixed on her, absorbing every note as if it were a treasure. "You should sing more, Mom. You're the best," he exclaimed, his eyes shining with admiration. "One day, you'll perform for many people, I'm sure." The simplicity of his words touched Eliza deeply. She knew that behind the courage she showed, there was a burning desire to follow her dreams. But life had taught her to be cautious. "Who knows, Miles? One day may come," Eliza replied, trying to hide the uncertainty in her voice. After dropping Miles off at school, Eliza headed to the luxurious apartment of Vivian, her employer. The socialite was known for her arrogance and disdain for those she considered inferior. Upon entering the building, Eliza felt the pressure of the oppressive environment, the walls adorned with artwork and the smell of wealth in the air. When she arrived at the apartment, Vivian greeted her with a disdainful look. "Ah, you finally made it, Eliza. I hope you brought your cleaning tools and not your singing ones," Vivian said, with a characteristic sarcastic smile. Eliza just smiled, maintaining her dignity. "I'm ready for whatever you need, Vivian." The tension between the two was palpable, but Eliza knew she kept her job because of her dedication. As she cleaned the living room, Eliza felt the need to escape that reality. Her thoughts wandered to music, to the lyrics she dreamed of singing that made her forget the difficulties. "One day I'm going to sing for the whole world," she murmured to herself, not realizing Vivian was watching her. "Excuse me, what did you say? Something about being a singer?" Vivian provoked, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, of course, you must be daydreaming. Music is for people like me, not for cleaners." The comment hurt her, but Eliza stood firm. "Music belongs to everyone, Vivian." "It may not seem like it, but everyone has a bit of art inside them," she replied, her voice laden with determination. Vivian laughed, but Eliza didn't let it shake her. She remembered Miles and how he believed in her, and that strengthened her. In the moments she was alone, among the brooms and cleaning rags, she allowed herself to sing softly, letting the melody flow and filling the space with a lightness that contrasted with the oppression she felt next to Vivian. That afternoon, while organizing the items on the shelf, Eliza didn't realize she was softly singing. The music slipped from her lips, and for a brief moment, she found herself transported to a world where she was free. The living room door opened abruptly, and Vivian entered, interrupting the moment. "You see, Eliza, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You don't belong in this place." Eliza, feeling the sting of the criticism, took a deep breath and replied firmly, "But I belong to myself, and that's what matters." The small flame of hope inside her reignited, and even in the face of adversity, Eliza knew that music would always be her escape, a voice that would accompany her on her journey of overcoming. Eliza hesitated in front of the broken mirror in the bathroom, adjusting the simple dress she wore. The dim light revealed her nervous expression, but also the determination in her eyes. Vivian's birthday party would be a unique opportunity, not only to make her son, Miles, happy, but also to show that she was more than just a cleaner. "You can do it, Mom," Miles whispered with an encouraging smile on his lips. "It's just a party, and I want to go." With one last sigh, Eliza decided they would go. The journey to Vivian's mansion was filled with insecurities but also with hope. The loud music and laughter echoed in the distance. Upon their arrival, they were met by a group of well-dressed guests who looked at Eliza with a mix of curiosity and disdain. Vivian, in her designer dress and with a sarcastic smile, soon approached. "Look who's here," Vivian said with a tone of irony. New York's favorite cleaner. Did you bring your son to the party, or is he just here to keep you company? Eliza felt the heat rise to her head, but forced herself to maintain her composure. We're here to celebrate your birthday, Vivian. I don't want to cause any trouble. Trouble? Oh, you don't need to worry about that. Just don't get too close to my guests, okay? Vivian winked provocatively while the guests laughed at her jab. Eliza took a deep breath, holding Miles's hand tightly. He looked up at his mother, searching for signs that everything would be all right. The party continued, and Eliza tried hard to keep away from the groups. However, when the music started playing, something inside her awakened. The community choir was always on her mind, and the idea of singing took over her thoughts. Mom, you should sing, said Miles, excited. This was going to be amazing. I don't know if this is a good idea, son. I don't want to cause any more problems, Eliza replied hesitantly. But the music seemed to call to her, and the idea of expressing herself through song began to feel irresistible. After a few minutes of hesitation, courage took over her. All right, Eliza said, determined. I will do this for you. With hesitant steps, she approached the makeshift stage. The music stopped, and all eyes turned to her. Eliza, what are you doing? Vivian whispered, her expression one of horror, but Eliza was beyond worry. With a nervous smile, she took the microphone, feeling the electricity in the air. The music began to play, and Eliza started to sing. Her voice, strong and full of emotion, echoed through the room, and the tension that had filled the space earlier dissipated. People began to pay attention, and even Vivian fell silent, shocked by the performance. You are amazing, Mom. Miles shouted, cheering from the audience. Eliza surrendered to the music, each note carrying a piece of her soul. She sang about her struggles, her hopes, and her dreams. The lyrics touched everyone's hearts, and as the song progressed, the murmurs of mockery turned into applause and shouts of support. Calvin, an influential music producer among the guests, stood up to applaud, his gaze filled with admiration. When the music ended, Eliza was breathless, but her heart was pounding with joy. The entire room was on its feet, applauding her. That was amazing, Calvin said, approaching her as the other guests continued to applaud. You have an extraordinary talent, Eliza. I would like to talk to you about it. Vivian, however, was in shock. She watched the scene, her expression of disdain now turned into anger. How dare you steal my moment, Eliza? She shouted, her voice filled with indignation. But Eliza, now full of confidence, looked directly into Vivian's eyes. I am not here to steal anything from you. I am here to show that I am worthy of being here too. The atmosphere at the party had completely changed. What began as an attempt at humiliation transformed into a moment of empowerment. Eliza finally felt that she was breaking free from the shackles that held her down. And looking at Miles, who watched her with pride, she knew she had found herself again, not just as a mother but as a woman. Eliza felt her heart racing as Calvin approached her after her electrifying performance. The music still echoed in her ears. But now, attention was focused on him. He, a respected music producer, was standing before her, praising her voice and talent. You were amazing up there, he said, with a sparkle in his eyes. I have never seen anyone touch the audience so deeply. You have a gift, Eliza. She smiled shyly, a mix of gratitude and insecurity. Thank you, Calvin. I just sang what I felt. It's what I love to do. And you should do more of that, he insisted, his tone firm and encouraging. If you want, I can help you take the first steps in your music career. I see enormous potential in you. Eliza hesitated, insecurity overwhelming her. I am just a cleaner, Calvin. I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of life. What will people think? Don't worry about what others think, Calvin said, running his hand through his hair as if trying to impart his confidence. Music knows no social class. It is a universal language. You have something to say and people need to hear it. While they talked, Vivian watched them from a distance, her eyes sparking with rage. The socialite could not bear the idea of seeing Eliza, a lower-class woman, receiving the recognition and attention she herself desired. Envy consumed her, and a malicious plan began to form in her mind. Meanwhile, Eliza was absorbed in the conversation with Calvin. "Do you really think I can do this?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "I don't just think so. I know," he replied with an encouraging smile. "Let's set a date to talk about it. You need to let yourself be carried away by the music. It's time for you to shine." Eliza felt a wave of hope growing inside her. That would be wonderful. But what about Miles? "I don't want him to feel like I'm abandoning him because of this." "You will not be abandoning your son. In fact, you will be showing him that fighting for dreams is an important part of life," Calvin said with an understanding look. "He will be proud of you." Eliza thought of Miles, her little one, who had always encouraged her. "You are right. He always believed in me. Sometimes, I just need to remember that I am more than what people think." Meanwhile, Vivian, consumed by bitterness, decided she would not let Eliza thrive. With a calculated look, she walked away, beginning to plot a plan to ruin the life of the woman who dared to challenge her. Vivian's mind spun with malicious ideas, and she was willing to do anything to keep Eliza in her place. At home, Eliza and Miles sat at the table, the soft kitchen light illuminating their faces. "Mom, did you see how impressed everyone was with your music?" Miles asked, his eyes shining. "You were perfect." "Thank you, my love," Eliza replied, her heart warming with the pride she felt for him. "But I'm still worried. What if this doesn't work out?" "You will succeed, Mom." "I believe in you," Miles said, with a conviction that seemed to surprise her. "You always taught me to fight for what I love. Now it's your turn to do that." Miles' words echoed in Eliza's mind. He was the reason she could not give up. The strength of the love between them was unbreakable, and she knew she needed to fight not just for her dreams, but for him too. That night, Eliza fell asleep with a new determination pulsing in her heart. The desire to overcome adversity and to become a voice for those who did not have one was stronger than ever. Meanwhile, Vivian, in her solitude, was plotting her revenge. But Eliza was about to discover that her struggle was just beginning. With the help of Calvin and the unconditional support of Miles, she was determined not to let anyone bring her down. Eliza was at home, surrounded by a heavy silence that echoed in her heart. The walls of the small apartment seemed closer, as if the world outside had become an inhospitable place. The day had started like any other, but the pressure she felt in her chest was undeniable. Her family's life was about to change, and not for the better. Vivian had orchestrated a scandal that would land her behind bars, and Eliza felt that injustice was about to consume her. That morning, as she prepared to take Miles to school, the little boy kept looking at her with concern. He wanted to understand why his mother seemed so distant, so lost in her own thoughts. "Mummy, are you okay?" he asked, sincerity in his eyes. Eliza knelt down to be at his level, trying to muster an encouraging smile. "Of course, my love. I'm just thinking about some things." Miles furrowed his brow but did not press the issue. He knew something was wrong. What Eliza did not know was that Vivian was waiting for her, devising a plan that would leave Eliza in an untenable situation. At work, the atmosphere was tense. Vivian's words echoed in her mind. "You don't belong in this world, Eliza. You better step away before I do something you can't fix." The arrogance of that woman was suffocating, but Eliza struggled to ignore it. What hurt her the most was the fact that Vivian had hit a sensitive spot in her heart, making her question her worth. When the day of Vivian's party arrived, Eliza hesitated to go. The idea of being exposed to ridicule was terrifying, but the hope of bringing a moment of joy to Miles pushed her forward. "Come on, Mom, it's going to be fun," Miles encouraged, holding her hand confidently. The little boy had faith in his mother, and that made her decide she wouldn't let him down. At the party, the atmosphere was one of glamour and ostentation. Eliza felt like an intruder in a world that wasn't hers. People laughed and chatted, ignoring the cleaner who was there only because of Vivian. "Look who's here," Vivian shouted, a cynical smile on her lips. "Our dear cleaner, I hope you brought your best smile." The laughter of the guests hit her like a punch in the stomach. Eliza bit her lower lip, trying to hold it together. "I won't let her bring me down," she whispered to herself. But what happened next changed everything. Impulsively, Eliza climbed onto the stage and introduced herself. The music that flowed from her lips was a mix of pain and strength. She gave herself completely to the performance. When she finished, silence filled the room, followed by enthusiastic applause, especially from Calvin, who was in the audience. "You're amazing," he exclaimed, his eyes shining with admiration. However, the moment of glory was brief. Vivian, with a furious look, decided to act. She must have stolen something to be here. "Look at her. Isn't she a fraud?" she shouted, her voice piercing. Eliza felt the ground shake beneath her feet. It was then that Vivian made the accusation that would change everything. "She stole from my purse. I saw her." The room fell into shock. Eliza froze, her heart collapsing. "How can you do this?" she thought, but she had no time to defend herself. The nightmare materialized quickly. The police arrived, and amidst a cacophony of voices, Eliza was taken away. "Mom, no!" Miles shouted, running after her. The desperation in her son's eyes broke her heart. "I will come back, I promise," Eliza shouted, but the pain and confusion were too much. As the vehicle doors closed, she felt lost. In prison, time seemed like a blur. Eliza was in a cold cell, her hands trembling at the thought of the injustice she was facing. The environment was oppressive, and tears streamed down her face. "How did this happen?" she murmured to herself as reality enveloped her like a shadow. But amid the despair, a flame of determination began to burn within her. "I can't give up. For Miles, I can't give up." Over time, Eliza began to plan her defense. "I need evidence. I need to show that I'm innocent," she thought, recalling Calvin's words of support and the choir. The love of her son and the music that inspired her were her fuel. "I will rise and fight," she decided, as the echo of her own voice resonated in her mind, like a mantra of courage. She didn't know how, but she was determined to prove her innocence and reclaim her dignity. Eliza sat in her small prison room, the smell of disinfectant and fresh metal filling the air. The heat of indignation and frustration boiled inside her, but there was also a thread of hope that would not abandon her. She remembered Calvin's words, who had told her, "The truth always finds a way to reveal itself." And it was this truth that now pushed her forward, even in the darkest circumstances. She knew she had to act. With the help of Miles and her friends from the choir, Eliza began to plan her defense. Her trembling hands steadied as she picked up a piece of paper and a pen. "Let's make a list," she said to Miles, who watched her with a determined look. "We need to gather all the evidence and witnesses that can help us." "I can talk to the choir people." "Mommy," Miles suggested, already getting up. "They would love to help you." "Great idea, son." Eliza smiled, feeling the strength in his voice. "And I also need you to help me remember everything that happened at the party. Every little detail could be important." In the following days, Eliza tirelessly dedicated herself to crafting a plan. With each conversation she had with her friends, a new piece of the puzzle fell into place. The choir was not just a group of singers. They were a family, and together they were determined to help her. In one rehearsal, Eliza was surrounded by the supportive faces of her friends, and the energy in the room pulsed with determination. "Eliza, we are going to help you. Each one of us has a story of overcoming, and your fight is our fight," said Sarah, an older woman from the choir, with tears in her eyes. "You are not alone." "Thank you, Sarah," Eliza replied, feeling renewed. "I need each one of you. Let's show the world who I really am." When the audience finally arrived, Eliza's heart raced. She knew she had to be strong. The future of her life and Miles's safety depended on it. The room was full, and Eliza could feel the tension in the air. Vivian was there too, with a smug smile that filled her with rage. But Eliza was not going to let that shake her. The presence of her friends encouraged her to keep her head held high. Calvin, who had become a great ally, was by her side. "Remember, Eliza, you have support. Speak from your heart and show them who you really are." In that moment, Eliza felt a wave of courage. When she was called to testify, she stood up, took a deep breath, and walked toward the courtroom. The judge's gaze was serious, but there was a spark of curiosity in his eyes. Eliza began to speak, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I am Eliza, and I am a mother fighting to raise her child in a world that is often unfair. I am not a criminal, and this accusation is an attempt to silence me. In fact, I am an artist, a singer seeking an opportunity to make a difference. Eliza's words echoed in the room, and she could feel everyone's attention focused on her. She remembered the nights she sang in the choir and the love she felt for music. Music gives me strength, and it is this strength that I'm bringing here today to show the truth. She began to describe the party, each detail vivid in her mind. Vivian made hurtful comments to humiliate me, but I didn't let her bring me down. I sang. I sang from the bottom of my heart. Calvin nodded, and Eliza saw the support in his eyes. And it was at that moment that I realized we don't just fight for ourselves, but for everyone who is silenced. I cannot allow Vivian to win with her lies. The room was silent. Eliza looked at the judge, who seemed impressed. I have brought evidence, she declared, holding up an envelope she had carefully prepared. Witnesses who were there and can confirm what I said. As she spoke, the weight of fear began to dissipate. The support of her friends, the strength of Miles, and the determination of her voice formed a storm of courage within her. Eliza was not just fighting for her freedom, she was fighting for everyone facing similar injustices. At the end of her statement, tears streamed down the faces of some jury members. I am not perfect, but I have a heart that fights. And this fight is not just mine, it is all of ours. Eliza returned to her seat, feeling the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Miles watched her with pride, and the applause of her friends echoed in her mind. She knew the battle was far from over, but at that moment, the truth was on her side, and nothing could extinguish the light she had ignited. The courtroom was filled with tension. Eliza felt the weight of expectation on her shoulders, but also the determination burning within her. Beside her, Calvin was reviewing the documents they had gathered, while the choir members waited anxiously outside, ready to testify on her behalf. The strength of the community she had built over the years was palpable, a reminder that she was not alone in this fight. Calvin, do you think they will believe me? Eliza asked, her voice trembling but full of hope. Of course they will. Eliza, you are living proof that the truth resonates. Remember what you always said in the choir. Music has the power to touch people's hearts. Your story does too. Don't let doubt win now, he replied, holding her hand firmly. His confidence was a balm for her insecurities. As the audience began, Eliza watched Vivian from across the room. The socialite was sitting in a luxurious chair, an air of disdain plastered on her face. It was evident that she felt in control, surrounded by her lawyers. But Eliza was not going to let that intimidate her. With her heart racing, she prepared for the next phase of her fight. The previous days had been long and difficult, but Eliza dedicated herself to gathering witnesses who could corroborate her version of events. The choir members were ready to speak, each bringing their own stories of overcoming. A climate of hope began to form as Eliza listened to her friends share their experiences. That morning, she gathered with them for a final rehearsal before the court. The space was filled with encouraging voices and understanding looks. Today is the day, Eliza. We will show them that we are stronger together, said Maria, one of the older singers in the choir. Yes, and if we need to, we will sing the truth. Music can be our weapon, added Samuel, a talented young man who had always admired Eliza. That's right. If music united us, it can also set us free, Eliza replied, feeling the energy of the group vibrate around her. The choir was not just a musical group, it was a family, and together, they were ready to fight. Finally, Eliza's moment arrived. As she was called to the witness stand, her heart was pounding. She stood up, took a deep breath, and walked to the center of the room, where all eyes were on her. The judge, a middle-aged man with a serious expression, watched her intently. Ms. Eliza, can you describe what happened that night at the party? He asked, his voice firm yet gentle. Eliza straightened up, recalling every detail. I was invited to Vivian's birthday party. I didn't know she was planning to humiliate me. When I got on stage and sang, it was a moment of freedom for me. I am not just a cleaning lady, I am an artist, and that performance was the truth I needed to share, she said, emotion overflowing in her words. The judge nodded, absorbing each word. And did you feel threatened in any way by Vivian after your performance? Yes. I felt that she was determined to destroy me, Eliza replied, her voice firm now. She falsely accused me of theft because she couldn't stand to see someone like me succeed. Calvin stood up as the next witness, sharing how he had met Eliza and the impressive performance he witnessed that night. Eliza is not just a cleaning lady. She is a dedicated mother and an incredible artist. Music is her life, and she deserves the chance to shine, he said passionately. As the hearing continued, Eliza felt the energy shift. The emotional connection she created with the audience and the jurors was palpable. When it was finally her turn to speak again, she decided to open up completely. I am not here just to defend myself. I am here for all the women who struggle every day. For all those who have been silenced and underestimated. Music saved me, and I want to be the voice that inspires others to fight for their rights, she declared, emotions spilling over in her voice. Eliza began to sing a song she had written, blending her pain with hope, and the room fell silent. Each note resonated with the truth of her journey. She was not just fighting for herself, but for all the women who felt invisible and powerless. The judge and the jury were captivated, and Eliza's strength began to spread throughout the room, transforming the atmosphere of tension into a wave of solidarity. What started as a personal battle turned into a celebration of women's strength, and Eliza knew she was on the right path to achieve the justice she so desired. The day of the trial had arrived, and the atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with tension. Eliza took a deep breath, trying to stay calm as she prepared to face the battle that could change her life forever. Beside her, Miles held her hand tightly, his small fingers conveying unwavering support. He looked into her eyes, and Eliza saw in them the determination that had always inspired her. "Mom, you're going to crush it. I believe in you," Miles said, with an encouraging smile. Eliza's heart warmed with her son's words, and she squeezed his hand, returning the smile. "Thank you, my love. Let's show everyone who we really are," Eliza replied, feeling the strength of that connection. Her voice was steady, but inside her, there was a storm of emotions. As she entered the courtroom, Eliza felt the pressure of all eyes on her. With her head held high, she walked toward the defendant's bench. The judge, a middle-aged man with a serious expression, watched her closely. Vivian was there too, wearing the same look of disdain, surrounded by her lawyers, who seemed overly confident. Eliza knew the battle would not be easy, but she was determined to fight with all her might. Vivian's lawyer stood up first. "Your Honor, the defense argues that the accusation against my client is completely unfounded. There is no concrete evidence to support the theft allegations," he began, his voice smooth yet firm. Eliza felt her stomach churn. There was a real risk that everything she had built up to that moment could come crashing down. But looking at Miles, who was watching her with admiration, she found new courage. If the defense has no evidence, it's because the truth is on the other side, Eliza murmured to herself, feeling the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Finally, the judge looked at Eliza, giving her the floor. "Now, the accused Eliza, you have the opportunity to defend yourself," he announced. Eliza stood up, her heart pounding in her chest. "Your Honor, I would like to start by saying that I am a mother who works hard to support her son. I have never stolen anything from anyone," she said, her voice echoing through the room. She paused, looking at the faces of the people in the courtroom, seeking empathy. "I love music. It is my passion, my life, and I am not the only one who has faced hardships. Everyone here has their own battles," she continued, with a determined look. "I am here to prove my innocence, but also to show that the truth can never be silenced." The judge listened attentively, and the silence that followed was heavy. Vivian, on the other hand, seemed disturbed, her expression hardening. Eliza knew she had to go beyond words. It was time to show the court who she really was. "I would like to call some witnesses," Eliza said, her voice firm now. "First, I call Calvin, the music producer who saw me sing at Vivian's party." Calvin entered the room, his presence lighting up the space. He approached, and as he sat down, Eliza saw a spark of hope in his eyes. "Calvin, could you tell us what you saw that night at the party?" she asked. "Of course. I was at Vivian's party and saw Eliza get on stage. Her performance was nothing short of extraordinary. I met her as a cleaner, but that night, she transformed into an artist," Calvin said, the confidence in his voice resonating throughout the room. "She is not just an ordinary woman. She is a force of nature." Whispers began to spread across the room. Eliza felt the growing support, and with it, her courage increased. Vivian, on the other hand, was growing paler by the moment. "Thank you, Calvin," Eliza said, trying to capture the moment. "If I am this force, it's because I have always believed that the truth prevails, and that everyone deserves a chance to be heard." She looked into the eyes of the judge, feeling that everything was at stake in that moment. "I am here to fight for myself and for my son. I cannot allow Vivian's lies to destroy our lives." "You are strong, Eliza," Miles whispered, and she felt the renewing energy of the faith he had in her. "I will do this for us," she replied, determination reflected in her gaze. With that thought, Eliza prepared for the next step, knowing that the true test was still to come. The fight for justice was just beginning, but the flame of hope burned intensely within her. In the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense. The judge, a middle-aged man with a serious expression, watched closely as Eliza prepared to present her evidence. She was nervous, but determination shone in her eyes. The room was full. Her friends, choir members, and even Miles were there, all rooting for her. The atmosphere was charged with expectation. Eliza stood up, took a deep breath, and began to speak. "Your Honor, members of the jury, today I am here not only to defend myself, but to expose the truth about who I am and what really happened." She looked directly at Vivian, who was sitting in the front row with an arrogant expression that tried to hide the nervousness consuming her. "As everyone knows, I was unjustly accused of theft by this woman," Eliza continued, gesturing to Vivian. "But the truth is that I am a mother fighting to raise my child with dignity. What Vivian did was an attempt to destroy my life because I had the courage to stand out where she least expected it." The jury listened intently, some members murmuring among themselves. Eliza felt she was beginning to capture their attention. With a gesture, she requested her lawyer, Calvin, to present the evidence. He stood up and approached the jury, holding a folder full of documents. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, here we have audio recordings from Vivian's birthday party, where Eliza performed. In them, we can hear Vivian making malicious comments and trying to embarrass Eliza," Calvin explained, as a technical assistant began to play the audio. The room filled with Vivian's voice, sarcastic and full of disdain. "Look at that. The cleaner thinks she's a star." She laughed, her words echoing through the courtroom. Eliza felt exposed, but also empowered. The truth was being revealed. The jury listened in silence, and Vivian's expression began to change. She tried to cling to her arrogance, but the tension was rising. When the audio ended, Calvin continued. "Furthermore, we have witnesses who can confirm that Eliza was at the party only as a guest, and that Vivian verbally attacked her. The theft accusation is unfounded and based on jealousy and personal insecurities." Vivian's lawyer, a sturdy man in an expensive suit, stood up. He had a confident posture, but Eliza noticed a trace of nervousness in his eyes. "Your Honor, what we just heard is nothing more than an attack on my client. We cannot forget that Eliza was found with the items that were supposedly stolen. This cannot be ignored." Calvin did not hesitate. "Clearly, this is an attempt to divert attention from the real issue. We must remember that Vivian's allegations were made after Eliza stood out in her performance. What we have here is a case of revenge, not justice." Eliza, feeling the strength of Calvin's words, decided it was time to speak again. She stood up, her heart racing. "Your Honor, members of the jury, I want you to know that behind every accusation, there is a story. I am not a criminal. I am a woman who has worked hard to take care of her child and follow her dreams." She paused, gathering courage. "Music is my life, and I just want you to see the truth. I did not steal anything. Vivian tried to bring me down because she saw in me what she never had, courage and the desire to fight." The judge, impressed by Eliza's sincerity, asked everyone to remain calm. The tension in the room was palpable, and all attention was focused on Eliza. She felt her voice echoing, not just within the walls of the courtroom, but in every heart present. "The truth can be painful, but it always finds a way to emerge," Eliza continued, now filled with emotion. "And today, I hope you choose the truth." When she finished, a reverent silence filled the room. The jury looked thoughtful, reflecting on her words. Vivian's lawyer, realizing the tide was turning, tried to discredit her. "Eliza, Do you really think your story will convince the jury? The reality is that you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. But Eliza, now stronger, simply responded, "The reality is that I am a woman who refuses to be silenced. And the truth, sir, is powerful." The judge observed the jury's reaction, and amid murmurs of support, he proclaimed, "Let's proceed, but I want everyone to maintain order. What is at stake here is more than an accusation. It is a fight for the truth." With that, the room prepared for the next steps. Eliza was determined to fight, and the truth was finally beginning to emerge. After the victory in court, Eliza felt that a new chapter of her life was about to unfold. It was a moment she had waited for so long, and the joy of finally being recognized as innocent still pulsed in her heart. With renewed determination, she decided it was time to give back to the community that had always supported her. Thus, she began organizing a charity event focused on helping women facing situations similar to hers. On the day of the event, the community center was filled with people. The atmosphere was one of celebration but also of solidarity. Eliza took the stage, her heart pounding as she looked at the crowd. Miles, her son, was in the front row, smiling and waving, and that gave her the courage she needed. "Hi everyone," Eliza began, her voice echoing through the hall. "Today we are here not only to celebrate the victory of truth but also to help other women who, like me, face immense difficulties every day. I want you to know that you are not alone." The audience responded with warm applause, and Eliza felt a wave of love and support. This event is to raise funds that will be used for training programs and emotional support. Each of you can make a difference. Together, we can be the voice of overcoming. Beside her, Miles held up a sign that read, "I believe in you, Mom." Eliza couldn't hold back the tears upon seeing him so proud. "Thank you, son. You are my greatest support," she said, winking at him. After the speech, Eliza began to interact with the guests, explaining the different ways to contribute. "We are selling t-shirts, raffles, and even some of my musical creations. Every penny will go to help women rebuild their lives," she explained to a group of women surrounding her. One of the participants, Sandra, approached and said, "Eliza, you are an inspiration to all of us. If it weren't for you, many of us would still be lost. Thank you for fighting for us." "It's not just me, Sandra. Each of us has a struggle, and together we are stronger," Eliza replied, feeling even more motivated. The event was an absolute success. People came together, buying raffles and donating generously. Eliza realized how much her story had touched the hearts of everyone there. By the end of the afternoon, as she counted the money raised, her eyes sparkled with happiness at what they had achieved. "Thousands of dollars. This will help so many women find their way to recovery and self-confidence," she exclaimed, radiant. During the celebration, Calvin, the music producer who had become a great ally to Eliza, showed up to congratulate her. "You did an amazing job, Eliza. I am so proud of you," he said, with a genuine smile. "Thank you, Calvin. I couldn't have done this without your support." "You were a light in my life when everything seemed dark," Eliza replied, feeling grateful to have someone like him by her side. "And now it's time for us to look to the future. Let's work on your music and take your message even further," he suggested, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Yes, I want my music to help others feel strong and empowered. I will use my voice for what truly matters," Eliza affirmed, determined. As the party continued, Eliza and Calvin talked about their future plans. The idea of recording an album that spoke about overcoming and resilience began to take shape. "Music is a powerful tool. We can create something that really resonates with people," Calvin said, excited. With the energy of the party still pulsing inside her, Eliza looked at the faces around her and realized that despite all the difficulties she had faced, she had found a new family in the community. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with, and Eliza was ready to lead this fight, transforming her pain into songs that would echo the message of hope and overcoming. Eliza was radiant, dressed in an elegant red dress that highlighted her beauty and strength. The gala, a celebration of emerging talent in music, was the perfect opportunity for her to show the world her true essence. As she prepared to take the stage, nerves consumed her. Beside her, Miles, who watched her with admiration, held her hand firmly. "Mom, you're going to rock it. Remember everything you've been through. This is your moment," Miles said, with an encouraging smile. Eliza took a deep breath, feeling the positive energy radiating from her son. He had been her greatest support through all her trials, and now she was determined to seek justice not only for herself, but for all the women facing similar adversities. When it was her turn to perform, Eliza walked to the center of the stage, feeling everyone's gaze upon her. The room was filled with well-dressed guests, but her heart only had space for the music. She grabbed the microphone and, before singing, decided she needed to say something. "Good evening, everyone. Today, I am not just here to sing. I am here to talk about overcoming, resilience, and the fight for truth. Each of us has a story to tell, and it's time to hear the voices that have been silenced." Her voice echoed through the room, capturing everyone's attention, while some guests exchanged curious glances. She began to sing a powerful song she had written herself, full of emotion and lived experiences. The engaging melody and deep lyrics resonated in the souls of everyone present. At the back of the room, Vivian watched with anger, surrounded by a group of influential people. But her expression soon turned to disdain upon seeing Eliza shine. As the music reached its climax, Eliza noticed the audience was captivated, many with tears in their eyes, while others applauded in a frenzy. When she finished, the room erupted in applause and cheers of enthusiasm. Calvin, who was among the guests, stood up and applauded fervently, a proud smile on his face. "You were amazing, Eliza," shouted Calvin as she came down from the stage, her heart racing with the adrenaline of the moment. However, the atmosphere shifted when Eliza decided to make a final statement. With the microphone still in hand, she looked directly at Vivian, who was trying to hide behind a group of friends. "Vivian, you may have tried to bring me down, but I am stronger than you think. I know the truth, and starting today, I will no longer be silenced." A murmur ran through the room, and Vivian, realizing that her mask was about to fall, stood up, trying to regain control. "You can't just make unfounded accusations, Eliza. What you say has no value," she shouted, her tone revealing her desperation. Eliza, without hesitation, continued, "I have proof of what you did. The lies and manipulations you used to try to destroy me. Today, the truth will be revealed." The audience was in shock. Eliza, and with a confident gesture, signaled for a group of friends and witnesses to come forward. "As part of my journey, I found support in people who believe in justice and truth. Today, we would like to share what we know about you, Vivian." The atmosphere in the room became tense. People began to murmur, and the police, who had been called in advance, entered the room. One of the officers approached Vivian, who was now pale and trembling. "Vivian, we are here to investigate the allegations against you. You are being accused of manipulation and false accusations, and we need you to come with us," said the officer as the guests looked on in shock. "No, this can't be happening," Vivian screamed, her voice full of despair. The room applauded Eliza, who was surrounded by friends and supporters, as Vivian was taken out, still trying to defend herself. "Thank you all for believing in me and the truth. This is a victory not just for me, but for all the voices that have been silenced," Eliza declared, with tears of joy streaming down her face. The crowd stood and applauded as Eliza finally felt free, as if she had broken the chains that bound her. She had become a true heroine, a voice of resilience and justice,